When you want to watch a movie or a TV show, you tap your fingers, and within a few seconds, you are watching whatever you want. But in some places, it's not so easy. Officially, there's one source of permitted media in Cuba, and it's the state. But Cubans found a way to work around this media blockade to distribute the latest in global entertainment to the entire country, coordinated entirely by an informal market of underground data traffickers, based both in Havana and the United States. It's the fruits of the internet without any of the guts. Once all the latest media from around the world is gathered onto one hard drive, the top dealers in Havana will prepare it for distribution. This extensive collection of digital media is affectionately called El Paquete Semanal, the weekly package.
Hi everyone, my name is Yunri Lee, representing Team 1. The topic we're going to talk about today is Cuba and chill, and the question we're going to demonstrate is, can Netflix utilize Danny's El Paquete to develop an operation in Cuba? And if so, how would he do that? The framework that we're going to use is the AAA framework and the comparative analysis framework.
In 1958, when the communist-friendly regime of Fidel Castro took command of Cuba, President Eisenhower established an economic embargo with Cuba. This means that no American citizens or no American companies were allowed to conduct monetary transactions in Cuban soil. In December of 2014, President Obama announced the lifting of visitation and spending regulations with the island of Cuba. He also announced efforts to grant American companies licenses to operate in Cuba and efforts to establish diplomatic relations with the island. Most policymakers expect the full embargo to be lifted within the next few years.
I will be explaining the AAA framework. I will start with adaptation. Danny, the gentleman that created El Paquete, has created a great distribution strategy in delivering media in hard drives and flash drives all over the island. We believe that Netflix should mold and utilize Danny's El Paquete to create a new business model in delivering media not only to Cuba but to other royal countries. He has evolved a great, strong delivery method, as I just said. Danny also had a strong tech team that works closely with him to build El Paquete on a weekly basis. But as the most important thing that Danny has is a great organizational structure. And as we just learned, a great culture in the company and a great organization method in the company calls for a great company. Next is aggregation. Connecting one of the FDI motives to aggregation, we would like to show how Danny's El Paquete can become a strategic asset to Netflix. We have done extensive market research. This next graph we're going to show you, it shows a study of the 198 countries in the world. It shows that only 113 have less than 50% internet penetration or usage in their country. Understanding Danny's process and aggregating the El Paquete process to these countries like Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, and Pakistan, which have less than 20% penetration or usage of internet, it's a great strategic asset. When you add up the whole population in these 4 countries, it adds up to 1.8 billion people. It shows that the untapped market is 1.5 billion. So Netflix going into Cuba is going into Cuba to do exactly what we are doing. Market research, understanding Danny's process, understanding Danny's delivery method, understanding how he distributes the media of flash drive, hard drive movement, also understanding Danny's method of payment, can be all a strategic asset to Netflix to create this disruption innovation around the world and tap into countries that have yet to be untapped.
So I will be explaining the arbitrage part of the AAA framework. The most important thing that Danny has over his competitors and Netflix is the fact that he knows the island and he knows the consumers very, very well. He knows what they like, what they want, and that's some very resourceful knowledge that Netflix can take and use to help when they do make the transition over to Cuba. On top of that, it also, the El Paquete Netflix would also be a lot cheaper than their online subscriptions.
I'm going to explain the AAA framework in the next graph.
If Netflix were to utilize El Paquete in the Cuban market, there would be high adaptation, low aggregation, and medium arbitrage. If Netflix were to pursue other markets with little internet penetration like Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, there would be some changes to the AAA framework. Arbitrage would remain the same while adaptation decreases and aggregation increases.
Here we have a financial breakdown of why we believe Netflix would be more successful and more profitable by partnering with El Paquete rather than having a DVD delivery business in Cuba. Let's remember, only 5% of the Cuban population has internet, thus a streaming business who have little chance of success in Cuba. As you can see, Danny has a much lower variable cost cost per good, and also much lower overhead as opposed to Netflix existing online DVD business in the United States. We can break down this spreadsheet, but you can clearly see that on a net profit margin basis, El Paquete runs a 56.5% net profit margin. Netflix DVD business in the United States runs a 34.6% net profit margin, and a Netflix business, the DVD delivery business in Cuba, we have a $9.8 million loss, mostly due to the overhead costs that are incurred.